I've noticed, and I want to see if this is something that other guy sports fans in particular have noticed. Have y'all noticed that the professional leagues, I'm talking like the NFL, MLB, and the NBA, most of these leagues are consistent of a lot of male sports fans, right? Like I'm a big time sports fan. I've been following sports for 15 years. I know the ins and outs of my teams in particular. I tend to watch other teams around the league as well. I tend to feel like I have a really good understanding of both the NBA and the NFL in particular. Not the MLB. The MLB is a whole separate land to conquer, and I feel like I'm slowly working my way to get there. But what I've noticed in the three American leagues that I have mostly had exposure to is that there is a very much a lack of female fan participation. I feel like there's just a lack of female fans out there. And I feel like as a result, a lack of female engagement when it comes to things like basketball, baseball, football, and stuff like that. I'm not saying there's not any female fans out there. There's just it feels limited. It feels like it's limited, and it is definitely not the same amount as male fans. I would love for there to be more female fans out there. Female sports fans. We need more. We need freaking more. I would love it. It's a perspective that is necessary. And I feel like you need a diversity of thought, particularly with fans. And I know that there's a few, obviously I've seen, that there are definitely female fans out there. I have friends that are girls and women that are sports fans. And, I know quite a bit, but, obviously I don't think it's at quite the number of male sports fans, in particular. So I kind of wanted to make this an open forum, where I can ask you guys questions in terms of, how can you guys respond? You can DM me, you can, email me. I'm pretty sure I'm going to make this into a TikTok too. So go ahead and respond, stitch it, duet, whatever the kids call it these days. But I wanted to ask like women fans out there, like female fans or like females in general who are not involved within the sporting community. Like anybody can feel free to answer these. Like, do you feel like sports is genuinely an inclusive space for you guys, for female identifying people? Because I feel like to a certain extent, maybe it is, right? I feel like sports in general is one of the most welcoming spaces because it's not about politics. It's not about things that divide. Sports is, in fact, one of these things that can very much unify people. And I tend to be in the crowd that really does believe in the unification of sports and people together rather than dividing them apart. And I really want to like ask females, like female sports fans and females in general, this question is like, how can I, as a man and as a guy sports fan, make this an inclusive space for you guys to be involved in? Because I really do want there to be more female engagement. Like, what can we do to make this a more female centric, not even female centric, but just get more female involvement along with men, right? Um, I know that like obviously society doesn't want this, right? Social constructs, society, they want, girls to play with dolls and guys to wrestle each other and play with footballs and basketballs and whatever, right? And that's obviously like shouldn't be the case. Like girls could play sports if they want to, guys should paint their nails if they want to. That's just, it should happen. Like I don't give a fuck about social constructs anymore, right? Like it's stupid. I think social constructs are very dumb. But like I'm curious, obviously like I feel like this social construct thing is changing, right? Like the girls with dolls, guys with like balls, whatever, that rhymes. I feel like that's changing, right? Like the whole idea of like guys playing sports and girls, being at home and domestic. I feel like girls are having more opportunities to do the reverse, and guys are, there are stay-at-home dads out there more than there probably were 60 years ago. But here are my questions. Do you like to all women, do you want sports to be like explained to you by a guy? Like, do you want it to be like, a guy to like really explain like what a particular sport is, whatever you're interested in, whatever questions you have? Or do you want to like do that research and your work on your own, watch games, get more acquainted with the sport, figure it out for yourself? Right? Like, is that something you want to do? Or do you, or sorry, do a lot of women like prefer not to be involved with sports altogether? Is that something like, is is this like not even worth having a conversation? Like, do women want to be involved with sports? I'm genuinely asking. Or like, and obviously you can't stereotype for all women and be like, all women hate sports or like all women love sports, but they just aren't involved. I'm sure there's some women that are like, I freaking love this. And some women are like, I would prefer not to be involved with this stuff. And I get both areas. I get both sides of it, because it's just like individual to individual. Whatever you're interested in, whatever floats your boat, you go and do. It's just, it's kind of what it is. But dude, like honestly, if you want to talk about like the bright side of like female representation in sports, I think there has been a lot of female rep in sports recently, at least, particularly with the media. And I'm talking like media, like I define media to be very broad, right? Not only just beat writers and people who cover the team, but like, sports personalities, ESPN, TikTokers, everybody. I feel like there's been more of a female perspective in recent years. The last 10 years, I feel like we've seen more women be involved within within sports on ESPN, like on major platforms, giving their takes. So that's really freaking cool. That's super sick. Female perspective again is really needed, and I feel like the NBA and the NFL media are changing in that, because those are the two leagues I follow in particular. If you follow baseball, feel free to add in some of the really great women that are covering the Giants or covering the MLB in general. But I feel like with the NBA and the NFL media, like when I go on Twitter, it can really turn into a sausage fest sometimes. In that, like, I feel like the male perspective is very much like it's analytics and let's get into this and that and that and the other. But like, I really like a lot of female sports journalists in that, and this is like maybe me stereotyping, but but I really like how female sports journalists can like really look at and I've seen this with a lot of them. They really do a good job of looking at the big picture and the full picture. I feel like a lot of male sports journalists really like to, or like male identifying, media members who cover sports are very into like the nitty gritty, like defensive efficiency metrics and plus minus and average points per game, defensive rebounding versus offensive production, like getting into like the real advanced statistics. I feel like, there are women out there that get into the advanced statistics. Shout out Mina Kimes. She does a great job on NFL Live. If you're into that stuff, go check her out. But there are also, but I feel like women's sports journalists in general, for like the pattern that I've seen, do a really fantastic job of like looking at the big picture and being able to like tie not only those analytics and all of that stuff together, but also bring together all of these thoughts and like be like, yo, okay, so this is what we're looking at in the grand scheme of things, rather than getting lost down rabbit holes, which I feel like, I've seen with a lot of these like sausage fest Twitter comment sections. Just my opinion, don't hate me. But again, like so many cool female creators in the media today, like 15 years ago, it was like 3 people. On Sports Center, it was Hannah Storm. It was like Carrie Champion was big back in the day. Michelle Beadle, like these were like the big female voices like 15 years ago. And there's about 3 or 4. Now, like I can go down the list, right? Like all the people I listed: Mina Kimes, like Malika Andrews, Maria Taylor, Rachel Nichols. I know she's controversial. I know she's very controversial, but Rachel Nichols, you know, Molly Kurm, Jenny Taft, like Cassidy Huberth, Laura Rutledge, so many people. Like I can just go down the list and rattle off a bunch. And I'm pretty sure I forgot Kate Scott, in that conversation. You want to go Bay Area? Kate Scott, Kerith Burke, Jennifer Lee Chan, Tracy Sandler. Like there's so many. There's so many really great female. Like Kendra Andrews, great beat writers, female personalities when it comes to sports. And it's just ever growing, which is super cool to see. And I'm very, very glad that it is, because it's very important. It's a perspective that is desperately needed, particularly in a very male dominated field that is the NFL and that is the NBA and also the Also, I presume the MLB as well. So shout out to all the women in media. Y'all are killing it. You guys are doing a great job. Continue to do what you do. But I definitely want men sports fans in particular to keep that question in mind of like, how can we get more women involved or like in sports conversations in general, as well as like, am I blocking women? Like, am I doing something at a micro level that is blocking that makes women feel uncomfortable within the space of sports? Just keeping those questions in mind. I'm not saying like, you know, you are wrong, you are incorrect, but like just keep those questions in mind.